In the year we now mark as 753 BC, I witnessed a miracle. Twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, were born to Rhea Silvia, a Vestal virgin, and Mars, the god of war. A fearful king, dreading their divine lineage, ordered them cast into the Tiber. I stood on the riverbank, watching as the waters, soft as a mother's embrace, carried their basket to the Palatine hill. A she-wolf, sent by the gods, found them. I marveled as she nursed them with her milk, her eyes fierce yet protective. A shepherd, Faustulus, took the boys into his home, raising them as his own, teaching them the ways of the land. As they grew into strong young men, I saw their spirits burn with ambition. They learned their royal blood and vowed to build a city where the Tiber had spared them. But ambition bred tragedy. I climbed the Palatine, my heart heavy, as Romulus and Remus clashed over the city's site and leadership. In a moment of rage, Romulus struck down his brother, his hands stained with kin's blood. I, as Romulus, took up a plough and traced the sacred boundaries of Rome, marking its walls with divine sanction. The year was 753 BC, and Rome was born, not in peace, but in sacrifice, a portent of its fierce destiny. Rome was a humble settlement, a scattering of thatched huts dwarfed by Etruscan cities and Greek colonies. I knew our strength lay in unity, so I opened Rome's gates to outcasts, exiles, and wanderers. They came, rough men seeking a new life, but our city lacked women. I devised a bold plan. I invited the neighboring Sabines to a grand festival, and at my signal, Rome's men seized their daughters as brides. The Sabines marched against us, but I stood among the women, who pleaded for peace between their fathers and husbands. Their courage forged an alliance, blending Sabine blood with ours, strengthening Rome's roots. As Romulus, I ruled as Rome's first king, shaping a community of farmers and warriors. I formed the Senate, a council of elders, to advise me, and divided the people into tribes for governance. I led raids against neighbors, expanding our borders, but I also sought the gods' favor, offering sacrifices to ensure their blessings. My reign was one of beginnings, of laws, unity, and ambition. When my time ended, legend says I ascended as Quirinus, a god watching over Rome. I reflect now, standing where Romulus once stood, gazing over the Palatine. Rome was a spark, fragile yet fierce, kindled by myth and divine will. I saw a city born from sacrifice, its people bound by shared struggle. The slopes, once home to wolves and shepherds, now cradled a community destined for greatness. Our rituals secured the Pax Deorum, peace with the gods, and our discipline laid the groundwork for eternity. After Romulus ascended, I became Numa Pompilius, the second king, chosen for my wisdom and piety. I saw Rome as a rough settlement, its people fierce but unrefined. I sought to temper their spirit with faith. I established the Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest, to guide our rituals, and built the Temple of Janus, whose doors would close only in peace, a rare event in our history. I created the Vestal Virgins to tend the sacred flame of Vesta, ensuring Rome's divine favor. My reign was one of calm, and I taught the people to honor the gods, laying a spiritual foundation that would endure. As Tullus Hostilius, the third king, I turned Rome's gaze outward. I craved conquest, and I led our armies against Alba Longa, our ancestral kin. I orchestrated a legendary duel between the Horatii and Curiatii triplets to decide the conflict, sparing countless lives. When Rome triumphed, I absorbed Alba's people, setting a pattern of assimilation. My wars expanded Rome's borders, and I fortified the city, but my ambition angered the gods, and legend says a lightning bolt ended my reign. I then took the form of Ancus Marcius, the fourth king, blending Numa's piety with Tullus' strength. I saw Rome's potential as a trading hub. I built the first bridge across the Tiber, linking us to the world, and founded Ostia at the river's mouth, our gateway to the sea. I expanded Rome to the Janiculum Hill, strengthening our defenses. My reign balanced war and peace, conquering Latin tribes while fostering commerce, and I felt Rome's pulse quicken as a regional power. As Tarquinius Priscus, the fifth king, I brought Etruscan splendor to Rome. I began the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill, a symbol of our divine mandate, and laid out the Circus Maximus for chariot races, uniting the people in spectacle. I oversaw the Cloaca Maxima, a marvel of engineering that drained the swampy valley into our forum, where I now stand. My wealth and vision elevated Rome, but my Etruscan blood stirred envy among the old families. I became Servius Tullius, the sixth king, born of humble origins yet chosen by fate. I gave Rome its first constitution, dividing citizens by wealth and military role, creating the Centuriate Assembly, a cornerstone of our governance. I built a wall encircling all 7 hills, fortifying Rome against threats. My reforms empowered the common man, but my rise from servitude bred resentment among the elite. As Tarquinius Superbus, the 7th king, I faltered. My pride and tyranny darkened Rome. I completed the Temple of Jupiter, but my rule was cruel. When my son violated Lucretia, a noblewoman, I saw the city's fury ignite. I stood in the forum as Lucius Junius Brutus rallied the people, and in 509 BC, I was driven into exile. I, as Rome, overthrew the monarchy, birthing the Republic to ensure no man would rule as tyrant again. Looking back, I see Rome transformed from a village of 35,000 to a city of stone and ambition. I wove Etruscan engineering and Greek culture into our Latin soul, crafting a distinct identity. My kings built bridges, walls, and temples, but their fall taught me the value of shared rule. In 509 BC, I cast out Tarquinius Superbus, his tyranny ended by the outrage over Lucretia's violation. I, as Lucius Junius Brutus, stood before the people, swearing no king would ever rule Rome again. I created the Republic, a system where 2 consuls, elected yearly, shared power, each able to veto the other. The Senate, a council of noble elders, advised them, ensuring balance. I felt Rome's spirit soar, free from the yoke of one man's will, but the path ahead was fraught with peril. The exiled king sought allies, and I faced immediate threats. I stood on the Tiber's banks as Lars Porsena, an Etruscan lord, besieged us. In legend I, as Horatius Cockles, held a bridge alone against his army, buying time for my comrades to destroy it, saving Rome. Though the tale may be embellished, it reflects my resolve. I repelled Porsena, proving the Republic's strength, but internal strife loomed larger. I saw division tear at Rome's heart. The patricians, our noble class, controlled power, leaving the plebeians, farmers, artisans, soldiers, marginalized and debt-ridden. I, as the plebeians, took a drastic stand. I withdrew to the Sacred Mount, refusing to serve until justice was granted. My resolve forced the patricians to create the tribune of the plebs, magistrates with veto power to protect my rights. I declared them sacrosanct, their harm a curse upon the offender. I also demanded the 12 tables, our first written laws, carved on bronze and displayed in the forum. Though favoring the elite, they brought transparency, a step toward equality. With internal reforms underway, I turned to conquest. I waged wars against the Volsci, Equi, and Sabines, expanding Rome's reach. I captured Veii, an Etruscan city, doubling our territory. But disaster struck when Celtic Gauls sacked Rome in 390 BC. I watched flames consume the city, though defenders held the Capitoline Hill, saved, legend says, by sacred geese. I rebuilt swiftly, raising stronger walls, and within decades I defeated the Latin League, granting some allies citizenship, a model of inclusion that strengthened me. I faced new foes in the Samnite Wars, grueling conflicts that stretched my legions across Italy's rugged spine. I triumphed, securing the peninsula's heart. The Greek cities of Magna Graecia, led by Tarentum, resisted, calling on Pyrrhus of Epirus. I met his war elephants with courage, enduring his costly victories until he withdrew. By 272 BC, I controlled Italy south of the Po River, governing allies with wisdom, allowing local autonomy while commanding their armies. As the Republic grew, I saw its character take shape. I was disciplined, adaptable, absorbing Etruscan engineering and Greek ideas. My legions marched in lockstep, my engineers built roads, and my laws bound a diverse people. I stood in the forum, now bustling with trade and debate, feeling Rome's pulse as a power ready to face the world. Yet I sensed tensions, between rich and poor, citizen and ally, that would test my unity. As Rome solidified its grip on Italy, a new horizon beckoned across the sea, where the mighty Carthage held sway. The First Punic War, 264 to 241 BC, marked Rome's emergence as a naval power and its first step toward Mediterranean dominance. By 272 BC, Rome controlled the Italian peninsula south of the Po River, its confederacy of allies bound by shared military obligations. The Greek city of Messana, on Sicily's northeastern tip, became the spark for conflict. Caught in a dispute between local factions, Messana appealed to both Rome and Carthage for aid. Carthage, a Phoenician powerhouse with a vast navy and colonies across North Africa and Sicily, seized the city's citadel. Rome, wary of Carthaginian expansion so close to Italy, saw an opportunity to assert its influence. The Senate debated fiercely, but the People's Assembly voted for war, driven by ambition and fear of Carthage's growing shadow. Rome faced a daunting challenge. It had no navy to match Carthage's fleet, honed by centuries of maritime trade. Undeterred, Roman ingenuity shone. Engineers studied a wrecked Carthaginian quinquereme, reverse engineering its design to build a fleet of 100 ships in mere months. To counter Carthage's superior seamanship, Rome invented the corvus, a boarding bridge that transformed naval battles into land-style combat, allowing Roman soldiers to storm enemy ships. This innovation, born of necessity, became Rome's edge. The war's early years tested Rome's resolve. In 260 BC, off Mylae, the Roman fleet, equipped with the corvus, won a stunning victory, sinking 50 Carthaginian ships. Yet setbacks followed. Storms, a constant peril in ancient naval warfare, destroyed much of Rome's fleet in 255 and 253 BC, claiming thousands of lives. Carthage's generals, including Hamilcar Barca, struck back on Sicilian soil, prolonging the conflict. Rome's manpower, drawn from its Italian allies, proved crucial, allowing it to rebuild its navy and press on. The war dragged on for 23 years, a grueling test of endurance. Rome attempted a bold invasion of Carthage's North African heartland in 256 BC, led by Marcus Atilius Regulus. Initially successful, Regulus was defeated and captured, a blow to Roman morale. Back in Sicily, Rome focused on capturing key Carthaginian strongholds like Agrigentum and Panormus, slowly tightening its grip. By 241 BC, Rome's rebuilt fleet, under Gaius Lutatius Catulus, decisively defeated Carthage off the Aegates Islands, cutting off its supply lines to Sicily. Exhausted and financially strained, Carthage sued for peace. The Treaty of 241 BC ceded Sicily to Rome, marking its first overseas province. Carthage also paid a heavy indemnity, weakening its economy. Rome's victory was monumental. A city with no naval tradition had outlasted a maritime empire, proving its adaptability, and resilience. Sicily's fertile lands boosted Rome's wealth, and its new navy gave it a foothold in the Mediterranean. Yet, victory came at a cost. The war drained Rome's resources, and its reliance on allies strained relations with Italian cities. The Senate's growing influence over foreign policy foreshadowed tensions with the people's assemblies. Across the sea, Carthage, though humbled, was not broken. Hamilcar Barca, nursing dreams of revenge, turned his gaze to Spain, where his son Hannibal would soon rise. Rome stood at a crossroads. Its horizons expanded, but its challenges multiplied. The Forum buzzed with tales of naval triumphs, but whispers of future conflicts lingered. The Republic, now a Mediterranean player, faced a world of opportunity and danger. The First Punic War had made Rome a Mediterranean power, but its triumph sowed the seeds of a greater conflict. The Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BC, was Rome's darkest hour, a clash with Carthage's genius general, Hannibal Barca, whose audacity nearly brought the Republic to its knees. After its defeat in 241 BC, Carthage rebuilt its power in Spain under Hamilcar Barca, who instilled in his son Hannibal a burning hatred for Rome. By 219 BC, Hannibal besieged Saguntum, a Spanish city allied with Rome, provoking the Senate to declare war. Rome expected to fight in Spain and Africa, but Hannibal had other plans. In a feat that stunned the ancient world, he led an army of 40,000 men, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants across the Alps into Italy, enduring treacherous passes and hostile tribes. Emerging in 218 BC with a reduced but formidable force, Hannibal struck at the heart of Rome's homeland. The war's early years were a nightmare for Rome. Hannibal's tactical brilliance shone at the Ticinus and Trebia rivers, where he crushed Roman armies. In 217 BC, at Lake Trasimene, he ambushed and annihilated a Roman force, killing 15,000. The following year, at Cannae, Hannibal delivered Rome's greatest defeat. Using a double envelopment tactic, he encircled and slaughtered up to 70,000 Romans in a single day, including a consul. The Senate reeled, and many Italian allies, including Capua, defected to Hannibal, lured by his promise of liberation from Roman dominance. Rome's survival hung by a thread, but its resilience defined this era. The Senate adopted a strategy of attrition, championed by Quintus Fabius Maximus, known as the delayer. Fabius avoided direct battles, harassing Hannibal's supply lines and wearing down his army. Though criticized as cowardly, this approach bought Rome time. The Republic's vast manpower, drawn from loyal allies, allowed it to field new armies despite catastrophic losses. Women and slaves contributed to the war effort, and the state imposed heavy taxes to fund the fight. Hannibal roamed Italy for 15 years, winning battles but unable to capture Rome itself, protected by its walls and loyal core. His inability to secure a decisive victory or consistent reinforcements from Carthage weakened his campaign. Meanwhile, Rome struck back. In Spain, young Publius Cornelius Scipio captured Carthaginian strongholds, cutting off Hannibal's support. By 206 BC, Spain was Rome's. Scipio, now a seasoned commander, turned to Africa. In 204 BC, he landed near Carthage, forcing Hannibal's recall. At Zama in 202 BC, Scipio, later called Africanus, faced Hannibal in a climactic battle. Using tactics inspired by his foe, Scipio outmaneuvered Hannibal's elephants and cavalry, securing a decisive victory. Carthage surrendered in 201 BC, ceding Spain and its Mediterranean islands to Rome, paying a crippling indemnity, and reducing its navy to a shadow. The Second Punic War transformed Rome. It gained vast territories, immense wealth, and unmatched military prestige. Scipio's triumph heralded the rise of powerful generals, a trend that would shape Rome's future. Yet, the war strained the Republic's social fabric. Italian allies grew resentful, and the influx of wealth widened inequality, setting the stage for internal strife. Carthage, though defeated, left a legacy of fear and ambition in Rome's heart. Recovery as a potential threat to Rome's Mediterranean hegemony. The casus belli was flimsy. Carthage, attacked by its Numidian neighbor Massinissa, a Roman ally, defended itself, violating the treaty's ban on waging war without Rome's consent. Rome seized the excuse, declaring war in 149 BC. The Senate's decision reflected not just fear but greed for Carthage's wealth and a desire to eliminate any rival. A Roman army landed in Africa, demanding Carthage surrender its weapons and hostages. The city complied, hoping to appease Rome, but the final demand, to abandon the city and relocate inland, was intolerable. Carthage, a maritime power, chose to fight. The war was a siege, brutal and one-sided. Carthage's citizens, unprepared for war, fortified their city, crafting weapons from household goods and training civilians to fight. Women cut their hair to make ropes for catapults, and slaves fought alongside free men. Rome, led initially by cautious generals, struggled to breach the city's defenses. The siege dragged on for 3 years, testing Rome's patience but never its resolve. In 147 BC, Scipio Aemilianus, adopted grandson of Scipio Africanus, took command. A disciplined leader, he tightened the blockade, cutting off Carthage's supplies by sea and land. In 146 BC, Roman forces breached the walls, storming the city in a week of slaughter. Carthage's streets, once vibrant with trade, ran red as Romans fought house to house. The city's defenders made a final stand in the Bursa citadel, but resistance crumbled. Scipio ordered Carthage burned, its walls razed, and its land sown with salt, a symbolic act to curse its rebirth. Survivors were enslaved, and Carthage ceased to exist. The same year, Rome destroyed Corinth and Greece, signaling its dominance over both West and East. The Third Punic War added Africa as a province, its fertile lands feeding Rome's growing population. The war's wealth poured into the Forum, funding grand monuments, but also deepening inequality. Small farmers, displaced by war and slave labor, swelled Rome's urban poor, while senators and generals grew richer, sowing seeds of discord. The destruction of Carthage marked Rome's transformation from a republic to an empire in spirit. Its legions, now battle-hardened, and its navy, unchallenged, gave Rome control of the western Mediterranean. Yet, the republic's moral fabric frayed. The Senate's ruthless ambition and the plight of the poor foreshadowed internal struggles that would shake Rome's foundations. Tarquinius Superbus, or Tarquin the Proud, cast a shadow over Rome. I, now aged, recorded his reign, marked by grand projects like the Temple of Jupiter but marred by tyranny. His court dazzled with feasts, but I noted the growing discontent among nobles and commoners alike, fueled by heavy taxes and forced labor. The spark of rebellion came with the rape of Lucretia, a virtuous woman, by Tarquin's son Sextus. I met Lucius Junius Brutus in the Forum's shadows, where he whispered plans to overthrow Tarquin. Rome cannot endure another king, he said. I joined the rebellion, rallying nobles and spreading Lucretia's story to ignite outrage. When Lucretia took her life to preserve her honor, I stood among the crowd, feeling the storm rise. On the day Tarquin was expelled, I watched him flee as Brutus and Lucretia's husband, Collatinus, proclaimed the Roman Republic, with 2 consuls elected annually to prevent absolute rule. I helped draft the Republic's constitution, ensuring the Senate's role. The Forum became a political heart, but I knew this fledgling republic faced threats, both from Tarquin's schemes in exile and internal divisions. From the Capitoline, I recorded Brutus's oath. Rome will rule itself. Yet I understood that freedom came at the cost of blood and conflict. As the Republic staggered under the weight of inequality and civil strife, 3 men rose to dominate its destiny: Pompey, Crassus, and Julius Caesar. Their alliance, known as the First Triumvirate, promised stability, but instead plunged Rome into chaos, culminating in Caesar's rise and fall. By 60 BC, Rome's Senate struggled to govern an empire stretching from Spain to Syria. Pompey, fresh from victories over pirates and Mithridates in the east, was Rome's greatest general, but the Senate denied him land for his veterans. Crassus, Rome's wealthiest man, sought military glory to rival Pompey. Julius Caesar, a charismatic noble with populist appeal, burned with ambition but lacked the wealth and legions of his peers. These 3 men, bound by mutual need, formed a secret alliance, the First Triumvirate, to dominate Rome. Caesar, elected consul in 59 BC, used his position to secure Pompey's land reforms and Crassus' tax concessions, cementing their pact. In return, Caesar gained command of Gaul, modern France and Belgium, a chance to win glory and wealth. Over the next decade, Caesar's conquest of Gaul was a masterpiece of strategy and propaganda. He defeated fierce tribes like the Helvetii and Belgae, crossed the Rhine into Germania, and ventured to Britain, expanding Rome's borders. His commentaries, vivid dispatches sent to Rome, made him a hero to the masses. By 50 BC, Caesar commanded a battle-hardened army loyal to him, not the Senate, and amassed vast wealth from Gaul's plunder. The triumvirate, however, frayed. Crassus, seeking his own glory, invaded Parthia but was killed at Carrhae in 53 BC, his army slaughtered. Pompey, now Rome's sole consul, grew wary of Caesar's power and aligned with the Senate, which feared Caesar's ambition. In 49 BC, the Senate ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen, facing certain prosecution. Caesar, standing at the Rubicon River, declared, "The die is cast," and crossed into Italy with his legions, sparking civil war. Caesar's march on Rome was swift. Pompey and the Senate fled to Greece, leaving the city undefended. Caesar pursued, defeating Pompey's forces at Pharsalus in 48 BC, despite being outnumbered. Pompey fled to Egypt, where he was assassinated. Caesar followed, entangling himself with Cleopatra, Egypt's young queen, and securing her throne. By 45 BC, Caesar had defeated Pompey's allies in Africa and Spain, returning to Rome as its unchallenged master. As dictator, Caesar enacted sweeping reforms. He reorganized the courts, expanded the Senate, and introduced the Julian calendar, aligning the year with the sun. He planned campaigns against Parthia to rival Alexander the Great. Yet his power alarmed traditionalists. Caesar's adoption of divine honors, like a statue among the gods, and rumors of kingship, a title anathema to Romans, stoked fears of tyranny. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, in the Senate, a group led by Brutus and Cassius stabbed Caesar to death, believing they were saving the Republic. Caesar's death plunged Rome into chaos. His heir, Octavian, a young but cunning relative, emerged alongside Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal general. They clashed with Caesar's assassins, defeating them at Philippi in 42 BC, but their alliance soon soured. The Republic's institutions, weakened by decades of strife, could not contain such men. The assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BC left Rome in turmoil, its republic shattered by ambition and civil war. From this chaos emerged Octavian, a young man whose cunning and vision would forge the Roman Empire. After Caesar's death, Rome teetered on the edge. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal general, and Octavian, his adopted heir, formed the Second Triumvirate with Lepidus to avenge Caesar. They purged Rome of enemies, executing thousands, including Cicero, in brutal proscriptions. In 42 BC, they defeated Caesar's assassins, Brutus and Cassius, at Philippi, splitting the Roman world among themselves. Antony ruled the east, Octavian the west, and Lepidus Africa. But unity was fleeting. Lepidus was sidelined, and tensions between Antony and Octavian grew. Antony, based in Egypt, allied with Cleopatra, Caesar's former lover and queen of a wealthy realm. Their relationship, blending politics and passion, produced 3 children and alarmed Rome's traditionalists, who saw Antony as abandoning Roman values. Octavian, meanwhile, consolidated power in Italy, settling veterans and winning the Senate's loyalty. He portrayed Antony as a traitor enthralled by an Eastern queen, using propaganda to sway public opinion. By 32 BC, the Senate declared war on Cleopatra, effectively targeting Antony. The decisive clash came in 31 BC at Actium, a naval battle off Greece's coast. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet, larger but less cohesive, faced Octavian's agile ships, led by Agrippa. As the battle turned against them, Cleopatra fled, and Antony followed, abandoning his forces. Their defeat was total. In 30 BC, Octavian pursued them to Alexandria, where Antony and Cleopatra took their own lives. Egypt became a Roman province, its wealth flowing to Rome. At age 33, Octavian stood alone, master of Rome's empire. In 27 BC, he took the title Augustus, meaning revered one, and crafted a new order, the Principate. Publicly, he restored the Republic, sharing power with the Senate, but in truth, he controlled the army, key provinces, and Rome's finances. His genius lay in preserving republican forms while wielding imperial power, avoiding Caesar's fate. Augustus reorganized the legions into a professional force of 28 legions, loyal to him, and created the Praetorian Guard to protect the emperor. He reformed taxes, built aqueducts, and transformed Rome with marble temples, boasting, "I found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble." Augustus' reign ushered in the Pax Romana, a 200-year era of relative peace. He expanded Rome's borders to the Danube and Rhine, securing the empire's frontiers. His family, the Julio-Claudians, ruled after him, including Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. Augustus' policies fostered prosperity, with roads and ports linking an empire of 70 million. The Forum gleamed with new monuments, and poets like Virgil celebrated Rome's destiny in the Aeneid. Yet the Principate masked challenges. Augustus' succession relied on family, not merit, sowing seeds of instability. The Senate, reduced to a ceremonial body, lost its vigor. The empire's vastness strained governance, and the military's loyalty to emperors would prove double-edged. Rome's republic was gone, its ideals of liberty overshadowed by one man's rule. With Augustus' establishment of the Principate in 27 BC, Rome entered a new era of peace and prosperity known as the Pax Romana. This golden age, sustained by the Julio-Claudian dynasty, saw Rome flourish as the heart of a vast empire, its influence stretching from the Atlantic to the Euphrates. Yet, beneath the surface of stability, the seeds of turmoil were sown, as emperors grappled with power and legacy. Augustus' reign, lasting until 14C, set the template for the Pax Romana. His reforms, professionalizing the army, streamlining taxes, and rebuilding Rome with marble, created an empire of 70 million, connected by 250,000 miles of roads. Aqueducts fed cities, and the Forum gleamed with temples like the Pantheon. Augustus' death marked a smooth transition to Tiberius, his stepson, a capable but brooding ruler. Tiberius maintained stability, strengthening the frontiers and managing finances, but his paranoia and reliance on Sejanus, a scheming Praetorian prefect, darkened his later years. His retreat to Capri left Rome uneasy, and rumors of tyranny swirled. Tiberius' death in 37 C brought Gaius Julius Caesar, known as Caligula, to power. Young and charismatic, Caligula began with promise, but his reign descended into madness. He declared himself a god, squandered Rome's treasury on lavish spectacles, and terrorized the Senate. His assassination in 41 C, after just 4 years, spared Rome further chaos but exposed the Principate's vulnerability to unstable rulers. The Praetorian Guard, tasked with protecting emperors, now wielded dangerous influence, proclaiming Claudius, Caligula's uncle, as emperor. Claudius, often underestimated due to physical ailments, proved a capable ruler. From 41 to 54 C, he expanded the empire, conquering Britain and annexing Mauritania and Thrace. He extended citizenship to provincials, fostering loyalty, and built infrastructure like the port of Ostia, easing Rome's grain supply. Yet, his reliance on freedmen advisors and his wife Agrippina's ambitions stirred resentment. Agrippina's son, Nero, succeeded Claudius in 54 C, likely after Claudius' poisoning, a grim testament to imperial intrigue. Nero, only 17 at his accession, began well, guided by his tutor Seneca and the Praetorian prefect Burrus. His early years saw cultural flourishing, with grand performances in Rome's theaters. But Nero's vanity and cruelty soon surfaced. He murdered his mother Agrippina, his wife Octavia, and countless senators, blaming Christians for Rome's Great Fire in 64 C, which he may have exploited to rebuild the city with his golden house. Nero's extravagance drained the treasury, and revolts in Britain and Judea exposed imperial overreach. In 68 C, governors and legions rebelled, and Nero, abandoned by all, took his own life, lamenting, "What an artist dies in me!" Nero's death ended the Julio-Claudian line, plunging Rome into chaos. The year of the 4 emperors, 69 C, saw Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and Vespasian vie for power, with Vespasian emerging victorious, founding the Flavian dynasty. The Julio-Claudians' reigns, spanning nearly a century, had solidified the Principate but revealed its flaws. Succession depended on family ties, not merit, and the Senate's power waned as emperors relied on the military. The Pax Romana endured, but its cracks were visible. Rome's streets buzzed with life during this era, from merchants in the Forum to poets like Ovid crafting the Metamorphoses. Christianity, born in Judea, spread quietly, despite Nero's persecutions. The Colosseum, begun under Vespasian, loomed as a symbol of Rome's grandeur. As listeners drift toward sleep, let them picture Rome's marble city, its aqueducts flowing, and Nero's golden house gleaming under the sun. The Pax Romana shines, but its future rests on fragile foundations. The saga continues, with new emperors rising to guide Rome's destiny. The chaos of 69 C, the year of the 4 emperors, gave way to the Flavian dynasty, which stabilized Rome, but it was the 5 good emperors who ushered in the empire's golden age. From 96 to 180 C, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius ruled with wisdom, expanding Rome's borders and fostering prosperity. Vespasian, founder of the Flavian dynasty, restored order after Nero's fall, ruling from 69 to 79 C. He began the Colosseum, a monument to Roman unity, and rebuilt Rome's finances. His sons, Titus and Domitian, followed, but Domitian's autocratic rule ended in assassination in 96 C. The Senate chose Nerva, an elderly statesman, to succeed him, marking a shift to adoptive succession, a system where emperors chose capable heirs, not blood relatives. Nerva's brief reign, 96 to 98 C, stabilized Rome, pardoning exiles and reforming taxes, but his greatest act was adopting Trajan, a Spanish general, as his heir. Trajan, ruling from 98 to 117 C, was Rome's Optimus Princeps, best emperor. A soldier at heart, he expanded the empire to its greatest extent, conquering Dacia, modern Romania, in 106 C, its gold mines enriching Rome. In 114 C, he marched east, annexing Armenia and Mesopotamia, reaching the Persian Gulf. Trajan's Forum, with its towering column depicting Dacian victories, and his welfare programs for children showcased Rome's grandeur and compassion. Yet, his eastern conquests strained the empire's resources, and rebellions forced partial withdrawals. Hadrian, Trajan's adopted heir, ruled from 117 to 138 C, choosing consolidation over expansion. He withdrew from Mesopotamia, recognizing the empire's limits, and fortified frontiers with walls, like Hadrian's Wall in Britain, stretching 73 miles across rugged hills. A lover of Greek culture, Hadrian rebuilt the Pantheon, its dome a marvel of engineering, and traveled widely, strengthening provincial loyalty. His reign was peaceful, save for the Bar Kokhba revolt in Judea, 132 to 135 C, which he crushed, renaming Jerusalem Aelia Capitolina. Hadrian's introspection and cultural patronage made Rome a beacon of civilization. Antoninus Pius, ruling from 138 to 161 C, brought 23 years of tranquility. His reign saw no major wars, only minor frontier skirmishes. He invested in infrastructure, building roads and aqueducts, and maintained Rome's prosperity through prudent governance. Antoninus' adoption of Marcus Aurelius ensured continuity, reflecting the strength of adoptive succession. His era was a quiet triumph, with the Forum bustling and provincial cities like Ephesus thriving. Marcus Aurelius, from 161 to 180 C, was a philosopher-emperor, penning his stoic meditations amid war and plague. His reign faced severe challenges. The Antonine Plague, likely smallpox, killed millions, weakening the empire, and Germanic tribes like the Marcomanni breached the Danube frontier. Marcus spent years campaigning, holding the line, but his health faltered. His decision to name his son Commodus as heir broke the adoptive tradition, a fateful choice that would haunt Rome. Under the 5 good emperors, Rome reached its peak, spanning 3 continents. Citizenship expanded, blending diverse peoples under Roman law. Poets like Juvenal satirized urban life, while engineers built baths and amphitheaters. Christianity grew, despite sporadic persecution. Yet, the empire's vastness and reliance on military loyalty hinted at vulnerabilities. Commodus' rise loomed as a shadow over Rome's golden age. The golden age of the 5 good emperors ended with Marcus Aurelius' death in 180 C, and Rome soon plunged into a maelstrom of chaos known as the crisis of the 3rd century. From 235 to 284 C, the empire faced relentless invasions, economic collapse, and political instability, with emperors rising and falling in rapid succession. Marcus Aurelius' son, Commodus, broke the tradition of adoptive succession, ruling from 180 to 192 C with vanity and neglect. Styling himself as Hercules, he fought as a gladiator, alienating the Senate and draining Rome's treasury. His assassination in 192 C sparked civil war, with 5 claimants vying for power in 193 C. Septimius Severus, a North African general, emerged victorious, founding the Severan dynasty. Ruling until 211 C, Severus strengthened the military, declaring, "Enrich the soldiers, scorn all else." His sons, Caracalla and Geta, inherited the throne, but Caracalla murdered Geta, ruling alone with brutality. Caracalla's reign, 211 to 217 C, saw a monumental act,
the Constitutio Antoniniana of 212 C, granting citizenship to all free men in the empire, a move that unified Rome legally but was driven by tax needs. His military campaigns drained resources, and his assassination left the Severan line faltering. By 235 C, with the murder of Alexander Severus, the last Severan, Rome entered a 50-year nightmare. Over 26 emperors, most soldier generals, rose and fell, often killed by their own troops or rivals. The empire seemed on the verge of collapse. External threats overwhelmed Rome's frontiers. In the east, the Sassanid Persians, under Shapuri, raided Syria, capturing Emperor Valerian at Edessa in 260 CE, an unprecedented humiliation. In the north, Germanic tribes like the Goths and Alemanni breached the Rhine and Danube, sacking cities. The empire fractured as provinces broke away, the Gallic Empire in the west and the Palmyrene Empire in the east, led by Queen Zenobia, claimed independence. Rome's legions, stretched thin, struggled to respond. Internally, the empire buckled. Hyperinflation soared as emperors debased the currency to pay soldiers, eroding trade. Banditry plagued the countryside, and cities fortified their walls, a sign of fear. The Antonine Plague's lingering effects weakened the population, and famine struck as supply lines faltered. The Senate, marginalized by military emperors, lost all influence, and Rome's once vibrant forum grew quiet, its markets sparse. Yet, Rome endured through sheer resilience. Emperors like Aurelian, 270 to 275 C, began the recovery. Aurelian reunited the empire, defeating Zenobia and reclaiming the Gallic provinces. He built massive walls around Rome, still standing today, and stabilized the currency. His assassination halted progress, but the stage was set for reform. In 284 C, Diocletian, a soldier from Illyria, seized power, ending the crisis with sweeping changes that would reshape Rome. Diocletian's rise marked a turning point. He divided the empire into 4 regions under the Tetrarchy, sharing rule with 3 co-emperors to manage its vastness. He reorganized provinces, separated military and civilian power, and fixed prices to curb inflation. These reforms, though harsh, restored order, but they transformed Rome into a more autocratic state, far from the Republic's ideals. The crisis of the 3rd century had pushed Rome to the brink of collapse, but in 284 C, a soldier from Illyria, Diocletian, seized power and reshaped the empire with bold reforms. His establishment of the Tetrarchy and sweeping administrative changes saved Rome from disintegration, but transformed it into a more autocratic state. Diocletian ascended amid chaos, with Rome battered by invasions, economic ruin, and political instability. Recognizing that one man could no longer govern an empire spanning 3 continents, he devised the Tetrarchy in 293 C, dividing rule among 4 emperors: 2 senior Augusti, Diocletian in the east, Maximian in the west, and 2 junior Caesars, Galerius and Constantius Chlorus. This system aimed to ensure stability through shared power and clear succession, with each ruler governing a quadrant of the empire from regional capitals like Nicomedia and Milan, reducing Rome's centrality. Diocletian's reforms were far-reaching. He reorganized the empire into smaller provinces, doubling their number to improve governance and tax collection, and separated military and civilian authority to curb ambitious generals. The army was expanded, with mobile field units complementing frontier garrisons, strengthening defense against Persian and Germanic threats. To combat hyperinflation, Diocletian introduced a new currency and the Edict on Maximum Prices in 301 C, setting caps on goods and wages. Though largely unenforceable, it reflected his determination to stabilize the economy. Diocletian's vision demanded loyalty, and he elevated the emperor's status, adopting divine trappings like the title Dominus, Lord, and elaborate court ceremonies, distancing himself from the Principate's republican veneer. He also sought religious unity, promoting traditional Roman gods to bind the empire. This led to the great persecution of Christians, beginning in 303 CE, as Diocletian saw their growing numbers as a threat to imperial cohesion. Churches were razed, scriptures burned, and thousands martyred, though enforcement varied across regions. The Tetrarchy's success hinged on cooperation, and for a time, it worked. Diocletian and Maximian repelled invasions along the Danube and Rhine, while Galerius fought the Sassanid Persians, securing a favorable peace. Constantius reclaimed Britain from a usurper, reuniting the empire. In 305 CE, Diocletian achieved a rare feat. He voluntarily retired, compelling Maximian to do the same, and elevated Galerius and Constantius to Augusti, with new Caesars appointed. This orderly transition, staged at Diocletian's palace in Split, was a triumph of his system. Yet, the Tetrarchy's stability was illusory. Diocletian's retirement left rivalries unchecked, and in 306 CE, when Constantius died, his son Constantine was proclaimed emperor by his troops, defying the Tetrarchic order. Civil wars erupted as Maximian's son, Maxentius, and others vied for power. Diocletian, living in retirement, watched his system crumble, unable to intervene. By 312 CE, Constantine's rise signaled the Tetrarchy's end, but Diocletian's reforms, smaller provinces, a stronger military, and centralized power, endured, shaping Rome's future. Under Diocletian, Rome's forum grew quieter, as new capitals buzzed with activity. The empire's roads teemed with soldiers and merchants, and baths like those of Diocletian in Rome symbolized imperial grandeur. Christianity, despite persecution, continued to spread, its communities resilient. The empire, though stabilized, was no longer the republic of old, its autocratic structure a testament to survival's cost. Diocletian's tetrarchy restored Rome's stability, but its collapse unleashed new struggles, from which Constantine emerged as a transformative emperor. His reign, from 306 to 337 CE, not only unified the empire but also embraced Christianity, reshaping Rome's spiritual destiny. The Tetrarchy crumbled after Diocletian's retirement in 305 CE, as rival emperors vied for power. In 306 CE, when Constantius Chlorus died in Britain, his son Constantine was proclaimed Augustus by his troops, igniting civil war. Constantine, a shrewd and ambitious leader, consolidated power in the west, defeating Maxentius at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 CE. Legend holds that Constantine, inspired by a vision of a cross with the words, "In this sign conquer," adopted the Christian symbol, the labarum. His victory, whether divine or strategic, marked a turning point, aligning him with Christianity, a faith Diocletian had sought to suppress. Constantine's embrace of Christianity was gradual but profound. In 313 CE, he and Licinius, his eastern co-emperor, issued the Edict of Milan, granting Christians freedom of worship and restoring their property. This ended the Great Persecution, allowing Christianity to flourish openly. Constantine patronized the Church, funding basilicas like St. Peter's in Rome and convening the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE to resolve doctrinal disputes, establishing the Nicene Creed. Though baptized only on his deathbed, Constantine saw Christianity as a unifying force for the empire, even as pagan traditions persisted. By 324 CE, Constantine defeated Licinius, becoming sole emperor. He centralized power, building on Diocletian's reforms, and strengthened the military with mobile legions. To reflect his vision, he founded Constantinople in 330 CE on the site of Byzantium, a strategic city bridging Europe and Asia.
This new Rome, adorned with Christian churches and free of pagan temples, became the empire's eastern heart, shifting focus from Rome's forum. Constantinople's walls and harbors symbolized a new era, its locations securing trade and defense. Constantine's reforms extended beyond religion. He stabilized the economy with the solidus, a gold coin that remained standard for centuries, and reorganized the bureaucracy, creating a powerful court of advisors. His military campaigns secured the Danube frontier against Goths and repelled Persian incursions, though peace with Persia was uneasy. Constantine's autocratic rule, with emperors now styled as divine figures, cemented the shift from principate to dominate, distancing Rome from its republican roots. Yet, Constantine's reign was not without flaws. His execution of his son Crispus and wife Fausta, possibly over court intrigue, stained his legacy. His reliance on family succession, naming his sons as heirs, echoed the Julio-Claudian's troubles. Christianity's rise also sparked tensions, as pagans resisted and Christian factions clashed. The empire's vastness, even under one ruler, strained governance, foreshadowing future divisions. Constantine's death in 337 CE left the empire to his sons, who soon quarreled, plunging Rome into renewed strife. Yet, his legacy endured. Christianity, once a persecuted sect, was now the empire's favored faith, shaping its culture and laws. Constantinople stood as a beacon, destined to outlast Rome itself. Constantine's unification of the empire and embrace of Christianity set Rome on a new path. But after his death in 337 CE, cracks reappeared, leading to the gradual decline of the Western Roman Empire. From the late 4th to the 5th century, invasions, economic woes, and internal divisions eroded the West, culminating in its fall in 476 CE. Constantine's sons, Constantius II, Constans, and Constantine II, divided the empire, but their rivalries sparked civil wars, weakening Rome. By 361 CE, Julian the Apostate, the last non-Christian emperor, briefly reunited the empire but died fighting Persia, ending hopes of pagan revival. The empire was permanently split in 364 CE under Valentinian Valens, with the west governed from Milan and the east from Constantinople. This division, meant to ease governance, stretched resources and loyalty. The west faced relentless pressure from Germanic tribes, driven by Hunnic migrations. In 376 CE, the Visigoths, fleeing the Huns, sought refuge in Roman territory. Poorly managed by corrupt officials, they rebelled, crushing Emperor Valens at Adrianople in 378 CE, a disaster that exposed Rome's military fragility. Theodosius I, the last emperor to rule both East and West, 379 to 395 CE, stabilized the empire, defeating usurpers and settling the Visigoths as allies. He declared Christianity the state religion via the Edict of Thessalonica in 380 CE, banning pagan worship, a move that unified faith but alienated traditionalists. Theodosius' death in 395 CE left the empire to his sons, Arcadius in the east and Honorius in the west, both young and weak. The west crumbled under invasions. In 410 CE, the Visigoths, led by Alaric, sacked Rome, the first such breach in 800 years, shaking the empire's prestige. The city, no longer the capital, was symbolically vital, and its fall sent shockwaves. The Vandals, another Germanic tribe, swept through Gaul and Spain, seizing North Africa by 439 CE, cutting off Rome's grain supply. The Huns, under Attila, ravaged the Balkans and Gaul, though defeated at the Battle of the Catalonian Plains in 451 CE by a Roman-Visigoth alliance. Economic decline compounded the West's woes. Heavy taxes to fund the army crushed farmers, and trade faltered as cities shrank. The Western army, reliant on Germanic mercenaries, grew disloyal, often backing usurpers. Emperors like Honorius and Valentinian III ruled as puppets, controlled by generals like Stilicho or Aetius. The East, wealthier and better defended, offered little aid, focused on its own Persian and Hunnic threats. By the 460s, the West was a shadow of its former self. Italy, Gaul, and parts of Spain remained under nominal Roman control, but barbarian kingdoms dominated. In 476 CE, Odoacer, a Germanic general, deposed Romulus Augustulus, the last Western emperor, sending the imperial regalia to Constantinople. This quiet act marked the fall of the Western Roman Empire, though contemporaries saw it as a continuation of barbarian rule under Eastern oversight. The West's fall was a slow unraveling, not a single catastrophe. Roman culture, law, language, Christianity, endured in barbarian kingdoms, and the Catholic Church, led by bishops like Leo I, filled the power vacuum. In the East, the Roman Empire, now called Byzantine, thrived, preserving Rome's legacy. The fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE marked the end of an era. But in the East, Rome's legacy thrived as the Byzantine Empire. Centered in Constantinople, this eastern half of the empire evolved into a distinct civilization, blending Roman law, Greek culture, and Christian faith. From the 5th to the 6th century, the Byzantine Empire rose as a beacon of stability and power, preserving Rome's heritage while forging a new identity. When Odoacer deposed Romulus Augustulus in 476 CE, he sent the Western imperial regalia to Constantinople, acknowledging Emperor Zeno as the sole Roman ruler. The East, wealthier and better defended, had weathered the storms that shattered the West. Constantinople, founded by Constantine in 330 CE, was a fortress city, its triple walls and strategic location on the Bosporus making it impregnable. Its markets bustled with silk from China and spices from India, and its churches, like Hagia Sophia, proclaimed Christian supremacy. The Byzantine Empire, though called Byzantine by later historians, saw itself as Roman, its emperors claiming Rome's mantle. Zeno's reign, 474 to 491 CE, was turbulent, marked by internal revolts and Gothic threats. He skillfully navigated these, using diplomacy to settle Ostrogoths in Italy under Theodoric, creating a buffer against other barbarians. His successor, Anastasius I, 491 to 518 CE, stabilized the empire's finances, abolishing unpopular taxes and amassing a surplus, while fortifying frontiers against Persian incursions. Anastasius' reforms laid the groundwork for Byzantium's Golden Age, strengthening its bureaucracy and army. The Byzantine Empire's identity took shape in this era. Greek replaced Latin as the administrative language, reflecting the East's Hellenistic roots. Roman law, codified in earlier centuries, remained the legal backbone, ensuring continuity. Christianity unified the empire, with emperors as God's earthly representatives. The Church's influence grew, but theological disputes, like the Monophysite controversy over Christ's nature, sparked unrest, requiring imperial intervention. Monasteries dotted the landscape, preserving knowledge and spreading faith. Byzantium faced constant external challenges. The Sassanid Persians, Rome's eastern rival, waged intermittent wars, straining resources. Slavic and Bulgar tribes pressed the Danube frontier, while in Italy, Theodoric's Ostrogothic kingdom maintained nominal loyalty to Constantinople but acted independently. Yet Byzantium's diplomacy, wealth, and military prowess, bolstered by elite units like the cataphracts, kept enemies at bay. The empire's navy dominated the Mediterranean, securing trade routes. Internally, Byzantium was a mosaic of cultures, from Greek-speaking cities to Aramaic-speaking villages. Constantinople, with 500,000 residents, was the world's largest city, its hippodrome hosting chariot races that rivaled Rome's Circus Maximus. Factions like the Blues and Greens, tied to racing teams, wielded political influence, sometimes erupting in riots. The emperor's court, with its elaborate ceremonies, projected divine authority, a far cry from Rome's Republican Forum. By the early 6th century, Byzantium stood poised for greatness under Justin I, 518 to 527 C, a soldier who rose from humble origins. His nephew, Justinian, would soon ascend, dreaming of restoring Rome's lost glory. The empire's wealth, fueled by trade and taxes, and its cultural vibrancy, from mosaics to theological debates, made it a worthy heir to Rome. Yet challenges loomed: Persian wars, internal strife, and the ambition to reclaim the West would test Byzantium's strength. In the 6th century, the Byzantine Empire reached its zenith under Justinian I, whose ambition to restore the Roman Empire's former glory drove a series of audacious reconquests. Yet, his reign was also marred by the devastating Justinianic plague, which reshaped the empire's destiny. From 527 to 565 C, Justinian's era was one of triumph and tragedy, a saga of imperial ambition, military brilliance, and a world transformed by disease. Justinian, a Macedonian peasant's son, ascended in 527 C, guided by his uncle Justin I's legacy and his formidable wife, Theodora, a former actress whose intelligence and resolve steadied the throne. Justinian dreamed of reuniting the Roman Empire, reclaiming the West from barbarian kingdoms. His first target was the Vandal kingdom in North Africa, which had seized Rome's grain supply. In 533 C, his general Belisarius, a military genius, sailed with a small force and swiftly conquered Carthage, restoring Africa to Byzantine rule. The Vandals' wealth flowed to Constantinople, funding further campaigns. Next, Justinian turned to Italy, ruled by the Ostrogoths. Belisarius landed in 535 C, capturing Sicily and advancing north. By 536 C, he entered Rome, welcomed by its citizens, but the Ostrogoths, led by King Totila, fought back fiercely. The Italian campaign dragged on for 2 decades, with cities like Rome changing hands multiple times. Belisarius, later replaced by Narses, finally crushed the Ostrogoths in 552 C, bringing Italy under Byzantine control. Justinian also reclaimed southern Spain from the Visigoths, restoring much of the western Mediterranean to Roman rule. These reconquests, though glorious, strained Byzantium's resources. Justinian's wars were financed by heavy taxes, burdening farmers and merchants. The empire's eastern frontier, neglected during western campaigns, faced renewed Persian aggression under Khosrow I, forcing costly truces. Justinian's ambition to unify Roman law proved more enduring. His Corpus Juris Civilis, codified by 534 C, synthesized centuries of Roman law, influencing legal systems for millennia. Its digest, code, and institutes became the foundation of Byzantine governance and later European law. Theodora's influence was profound, from quelling the Nika riots of 532 C, when chariot factions nearly overthrew Justinian, to advocating for women's rights in law. Her death in 548 C left Justinian bereft, but he pressed on. His architectural legacy, the Hagia Sophia, completed in 537 C, stood as a marvel, its vast domes symbolizing divine wisdom. Its mosaics and marble dazzled worshippers, proclaiming Byzantium's grandeur. Yet, Justinian's reign was overshadowed by catastrophe. In 541 C, the Justinianic plague, likely bubonic, struck Constantinople, spreading across the empire. Carried by trade routes, it killed up to 1/3 of the population, with bodies piled in streets and mass graves dug in haste. The plague devastated the economy, emptying farms and cities, and weakened the army, reliant on recruits. Tax revenues plummeted, forcing Justinian to scale back ambitions. The plague's recurring waves haunted Byzantium for centuries, altering its demographic and social fabric. By Justinian's death in 565 CE, the empire was overstretched. Italy, ravaged by war, fell to the Lombards soon after, undoing much of Belisarius' work. The treasury was depleted, and Persia loomed as a threat. Yet, Justinian's legacy endured. His laws, churches, and brief restoration of Roman unity inspired future emperors. Constantinople remained the world's greatest city, its markets and churches vibrant despite loss. Justinian's death in 565 CE left the Byzantine Empire exhausted, its resources drained by wars and plague. In the 7th century, a new force emerged to challenge Rome's eastern heir, the Arab conquests, fueled by the rise of Islam. These invasions stripped Byzantium of vast territories, but the empire's resilience ensured its survival. In 610 CE, Heraclius, a dynamic emperor, seized the throne amid crisis. The Sassanid Persians, under Khosrow II, had overrun Byzantine Syria, Palestine, and Egypt, capturing Jerusalem in 614 CE and seizing the True Cross, a Christian relic. Heraclius, after reorganizing the empire's defenses, launched a daring counteroffensive, penetrating Persia's heartland. By 628 CE, he defeated Khosrow, recovering lost territories and the cross, a triumph celebrated in Constantinople. Yet, this victory was short-lived, as a new power arose from Arabia. In 622 CE, the Prophet Muhammad's migration to Medina, the Hijra, marked Islam's birth. After his death in 632 CE, the Rashidun Caliphate united Arab tribes under Abu Bakr and Umar, launching conquests with astonishing speed. Driven by faith and martial prowess, Arab armies swept north. In 636 CE, at the Battle of Yarmouk, they crushed Byzantine forces, seizing Syria. By 642 CE, Egypt, the empire's breadbasket, fell, followed by Palestine and Mesopotamia. The Arabs' mobility and zeal overwhelmed Byzantine garrisons, weakened by Persian wars and plague. Byzantium reeled from these losses, which halved its territory and wealth. Constantinople faced direct threats as Arab fleets and armies besieged it in 674 to 678 CE and again in 717 to 718 CE. The empire's survival hinged on its defenses. Constantinople's Theodosian walls, bolstered by sea chains, repelled invaders, while Greek fire, an incendiary weapon, incinerated Arab ships. Emperor Leo III's victory in 718 CE halted the Arab advance, preserving Byzantium as Europe's bulwark. To survive, Byzantium adapted. Heraclius reorganized the empire into themes, military districts where soldier farmers defended land in exchange for tax exemptions, creating a resilient defense system. Greek became the official language, cementing Byzantium's Hellenistic identity. The Church, a unifying force, rallied the population, framing wars as holy struggles. Yet, theological disputes persisted, with iconoclasm, Leo III's ban on religious images in the 8th century, sparking unrest, though later reversed. The Arab conquests transformed the Mediterranean. The Umayyad Caliphate, followed by the Abbasids, built a rival civilization, with capitals in Damascus and Baghdad. Byzantine trade shifted east, relying on silk and spices, but Egypt's loss strained grain supplies. Culturally, Byzantium preserved Roman law and Greek texts, while Arab scholars translated them, sparking an Islamic golden age. Christianity endured in Byzantium, its monasteries copying manuscripts, even as Islam spread across former Roman lands. By the 8th century, Byzantium stabilized, its core, Anatolia, Greece, and the Balkans, secure. Emperors like Constantine V repelled Arab raids and reclaimed parts of the Balkans from Slavs. The empire, though smaller, was leaner and more cohesive, its identity forged in adversity. Constantinople remained a global hub, its Hagia Sophia a symbol of resilience. The Byzantine Empire's survival against the Arab conquests in the 7th and 8th centuries forged a resilient state, poised for a new golden age. From the 9th to the 11th century, Byzantium flourished under the Macedonian dynasty, reclaiming lost territories and dazzling the world with its culture. Yet, internal strife and external threats led to its decline, culminating in challenges that would shape its final centuries. After repelling Arab sieges, Byzantium entered a period of recovery under the Isaurian dynasty, with emperors like Leo III and Constantine V strengthening the theme system and repelling invaders. The Macedonian dynasty, beginning with Basil I in 867 C, ushered in a golden age. Basil, a peasant-turned-emperor, stabilized the empire, launching campaigns against Arab emirates in southern Italy and the eastern frontier. His successors, notably Constantine VII and Romanos I, fostered a cultural renaissance, with scholars compiling encyclopedias and artists crafting intricate mosaics in Constantinople's churches. The empire's military zenith came under Basil II, known as the Bulgar Slayer, who ruled from 976 to 1025 C. Basil crushed the Bulgarian Empire in a decades-long campaign, annexing the Balkans by 1018 C, and repelled Arab raids in Syria. His disciplined army, bolstered by Varangian guards, Norse mercenaries, restored Byzantine dominance. Basil's treasury overflowed, and Constantinople, with its 400,000 residents, was the envy of the world, its Hagia Sophia and imperial palace drawing envoys from Europe and Asia. The empire stretched from southern Italy to Armenia, a shadow of Rome's former glory. This golden age was a cultural triumph. Byzantine scholars preserved Greek and Roman texts, copying works by Plato, Aristotle, and Justinian's laws, while monasteries safeguarded Christian manuscripts. The University of Constantinople trained bureaucrats, and missionaries like Cyril and Methodius spread Christianity and the Cyrillic alphabet to the Slavs, cementing Byzantine influence in Russia and the Balkans. Diplomacy, backed by gold and marriage alliances, kept enemies like the Rus and Pecheneg at bay, while silk and icons showcased Byzantium's wealth. Yet cracks appeared. Basil II's death in 1025 C left no strong heir, and the Macedonian line weakened under incompetent emperors. The empire's reliance on mercenaries, like the Normans, eroded military loyalty. The Great Schism of 1054 C, when the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches split over doctrinal disputes, isolated Byzantium from Western allies. Economic strains grew as Italian city-states like Venice gained trade dominance, siphoning wealth from Byzantine ports. The empire's decline accelerated in the 11th century. In 1071 C, at the Battle of Manzikert, Seljuk Turks under Alp Arslan defeated Emperor Romanos IV, capturing Anatolia, Byzantium's heartland. The loss crippled the empire's manpower and tax base. Civil wars erupted as nobles vied for the throne, and the Comnenian dynasty, beginning with Alexios I in 1081 C, struggled to recover. Alexios sought Western aid, sparking the First Crusade, 1096 to 1099 C, which briefly reclaimed lands but strained relations with Latin Christians, who later sacked Constantinople in 1204 C during the Fourth Crusade. Byzantium's resilience persisted under emperors like John II and Manuel I Komnenos, who restored parts of Anatolia and maintained cultural splendor. But the empire was a shadow of its former self, surrounded by Normans, Turks, and Crusaders. The Byzantine Empire, Rome's eastern heir,
endured for centuries after its golden age, but by the 15th century, it faced its final test. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 CE marked the end of the Roman Empire's last remnant, yet Rome's legacy lived on in law, culture, and faith. After the Comnenian Restoration, Byzantium limped on, weakened by the Fourth Crusade's sack of Constantinople in 1204 CE, which fragmented the empire into Latin and Greek successor states. The Palaeologan dynasty, beginning with Michael VIII in 1261 CE, reclaimed Constantinople, but the empire was a shell, reduced to the city and scattered territories. Surrounded by the rising Ottoman Turks, who had conquered Anatolia and the Balkans, Byzantium struggled to survive. The Ottoman Sultanate, under leaders like Murad II, tightened its grip, cutting off Byzantine trade and allies. By the 15th century, Constantinople was a shadow of its former glory, its population dwindling to 50,000, its once vibrant hippodrome silent. Yet, its walls, built by Theodosius II, stood firm, and its churches, led by Hagia Sophia, inspired hope. Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos, crowned in 1449 CE, faced an impossible task, defending the city against Mehmet II, the Ottoman Sultan determined to claim the Red Apple, Constantinople's mythic title. Mehmet's ambition was fueled by prophecy and power, his empire bolstered by cannons and a vast army. In April 1453 CE, Mehmet besieged Constantinople with 80,000 troops and massive artillery, including a cannon by Orban that hurled 600-pound stones. Constantine XI, with 7,000 defenders, Greeks, Genoese, and Venetians, rallied the city, repairing walls and chaining the Golden Horn to block Ottoman ships. For 53 days, Byzantium held, repelling assaults with Greek fire and courage. On May 29, 1453 CE, Ottoman troops breached the walls at the gate of St. Romanus, overwhelming defenders. Constantine XI, refusing to flee, died fighting, his body lost in the chaos. Constantinople fell, its churches looted, and Hagia Sophia converted to a mosque, though spared destruction. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of the Byzantine Empire, and with it, the Roman Empire's 2,206-year span from Romulus' founding in 753 BC. Mehmet II, styling himself Caesar of Rome, made Constantinople his capital, renaming it Istanbul. The Ottoman Empire, blending Turkic and Byzantine traditions, carried echoes of Rome's administration and architecture. In Europe, the fall shocked Christendom, spurring the Renaissance as Greek scholars fled west with ancient texts, fueling a revival of Roman and Greek learning. Rome's legacy endured beyond Byzantium's fall. Roman law, codified by Justinian, shaped European legal systems, from medieval canon law to modern civil codes. Latin, Rome's language, birthed Romance languages and scientific terminology. Christianity, spread by Rome's emperors, defined Western and Eastern faith, with the Catholic and Orthodox churches tracing their roots to Rome's basilicas. Roman engineering, aqueducts, roads, domes, inspired architects from the Renaissance to today. Even Rome's political ideals, from republicanism to imperial governance, influenced modern states. In Istanbul, Hagia Sophia stands as a testament to Rome's endurance, its dome now a museum bridging faiths. In Old Rome, the Forum's ruins draw millions, whispering of a city that shaped the world. Rome's story, from a village on the Tiber to a universal idea, lives in every courthouse, cathedral, and constitution. As the echoes of Rome's saga linger, from its mythic founding to Constantinople's final stand, the journey of empires and heroes continues to unfold. To travel further through history's grand tales, subscribe to this YouTube channel, where the past comes alive with stories of triumph, tragedy, and timeless legacy.